So hello and welcome everybody to this week's Soul Wisdom Show, where I'm delighted to be interviewing the wonderful Michele Henshaw from Life Path Design. And we're going to be talking into bravely walking your own path in business and how to do that. So welcome, Michele. Just tell us a little bit about you and who you are. And yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. This is really good fun. So I'm Michele Henshaw. I'm a spiritual and some call me woo-woo business coach, I suppose, in a nutshell. So I work with owners of businesses, not businesses because they're not an entity, are they? But owners of businesses that either want to bring their own spirituality and heart-centeredness and woo-woo into their business, or woo-woo spiritual heart-centered business owners that want to make their business a little bit more mindful and conscious.
Yeah.
So both, really, I suppose, coming at it from both angles. And I came to do this because I come from a long line of witches and healers.
Ooh, exciting.
On my father's side, they were all sort of Irish traveling healers and medicine people. Yeah. And on my mother's side, they were all Wicca witches from Oswestry in the UK, on the Welsh border in the UK. But I spent a lot of my time as a child and a young person sort of denying all that, herbs, herbal drinks and herbal medicines and all that, when you're a child, stuff that makes you stand out for all the wrong reasons. So I spent a lot of time hiding that. And I sort of fell into an industry in my early career that was, it was definitely not a good idea to talk about any of that. I went into advertising and marketing, a real old boys network. All sort of, white, older, male dominated, very corporate. And it definitely wasn't the done thing to talk about alternative ways of doing things, either privately, personally, or in business.
It can seem quite scary to people, can't it? And I remember that for myself. And like, I come from an IT background, and it was like, oh, there was none of this mindfulness, consciousness. It was, it was actually just do, and just don't talk about or be any of that. But I didn't come from such a spiritually aligned family. So it was like, so what kind of like, when did you start thinking about, bringing that in, or how did that evolve? How did that come about?
Well, it was, we definitely haven't got long enough. We need more sessions. But there were a whole series of things, I would say. My early life was quite traumatic. Both my parents were incredibly creative as well. So my dad was a jazz musician. My mum was an opera singer and champion Latin American dancer. There's lots of creative chaos as well. So everything felt very chaotic and unstable to me. And so all of that woo-woo and spirituality, I put together with all of that and kind of went, right, that's enough of that. But, if it's in your DNA, it's in your DNA. And so through my 20-odd year corporate career, something always just felt a little bit amiss. Something was misaligned. It was like I was creating a series of avatars of myself just to do what I felt I needed to do. And it just didn't feel right to me. It was, they ruled with a rod of iron. It was all fear. Who can be in the earliest? Who can leave the latest? Who can work the hardest? And it just never felt right to me. There was always an angst about it that just wasn't aligned. And so really, I suppose when I got to sort of direct level and I was responsible for other people, that brought its own pressure as well, because I was then having to battle with the old boys around the boardroom table. And I could feel myself burning out. I was getting to, the point where I wasn't going to be able to do this anymore. So I had to find ways for me personally to survive, because at that point I didn't know there was a way out. I just thought I had to carry on with this crazy scenario. And so I started to look at things. I started, I suppose, to go back to my roots. I'd always done my personal health as naturally as I possibly could.
Yeah.
But then I started to look at my own mental health and what could I do about that? How could I, instead of shutting all the trauma away, how could I bring it back out and deal with it and clear that? Yeah. How could I manage the day-to-day? And how could I manage other people as well? And so I started to look at things like NLP and CBT and mindfulness and all of those things that have got initials, you know, CBT, NLP, can't remember, EFT, you name it. They've all got initials, haven't they?
Yeah, it's like once you unleash that box, isn't it? It's like an endless treasure trove. And it's like, what can I do next? What can I do next? And that's exactly what happened to me. It was like you crank open a door and it's like, oh, there's a whole nother world behind here. And it's like, but then it's like, I suppose, you know, coming up, you know, saying about the woo-woo and just thinking, for me, I personally thought, you know, I can go and explore it a little bit. But then when I finish with that, I have to go back to my old life and firmly shut that door behind me and just not tell anyone about it.
Yes, exactly. And so, that's how it started for me. It was a personal journey. And I thought, well, you know, I can't talk about any of this at work. I just got to, but I can kind of slowly try to sort of seep some of it in because it's worked for me. So, and my management style was always deal with the individual. No blanket approach. You know, it was about individuals to me. Get to know them, what motivates them, what makes them tick, what they need. And even that in that industry was, I can't tell you the amount of stick I got for that kind of, you know, they just thought I was soft around the edges. And the old boys just did not like it. Like, just tell them they've got to do it. Just threaten them. Just, you know. And my approach was very, very different.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah. But then when I went into this personal development Narnia through the wardrobe, I thought, so I'm right. It's just that I didn't actually have the tools to back it up. Yeah. And so I started to use that with my teams, all of that stuff with my teams. And lo and behold, I mean, it's a very long story. I'm trying to keep it concise because we haven't got all week.
I'm sure we could be chatting here for hours.
We could. Yeah. But in a very short version, slowly people in the industry started to see that I was actually getting better results from the way that I was managing people and doing things. Less absences, more productivity and profitability, and this slowly started to sort of go, so what is it you're doing? You know, but then I reached a point on a personal level. There was a lot of things going on in my life at the time where I just thought, I can't carry on doing this. It's still misaligned. I don't belong here.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? It's when the further along we go, like walking that path, being misaligned to things, the harder and harder it becomes, to the point where it's just like, we're actually at no choice here. It's like, we've got to walk away and sort of start looking at how we can do things differently. I totally get that. So I can see a few people are watching, which is brilliant. Got a couple of hearts. So thank you. So please do let us know how any of this resonates with you. Post something in the comments. Has this journey been similar to your own that Michele and I are talking about? Have you got any questions as we go along? Please do ask them and post them in the comment box. I'm just using a different live streaming mechanism, so I'm hoping that they'll come up. So just give us those hearts, those bits of love to see, like, just to let us know you're watching and that you can hear us all okay. So it's just it's an interesting path, that point where we come to, where it's like, okay, I have to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was like going back home to myself, that version of myself that I'd been denying for such a long time. I was starting to reconnect with. And she didn't want to be there anymore. She wanted to take all of this stuff and go and help other, primarily women, in crazy male-dominated industries that wanted to do things in a more heart-centered, conscious and mindful way. Show them that it could be done and support them, and, you know, be shoulders for them to stand on, I guess. And so I did that 15 years ago.
Wow.
And for me, it had to be, because that the industry I was in was so all consuming. For me, it couldn't be transitional. I had to make the decision and just jump.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly how it was for me.
Yeah, I think you have to, you know, when you're in that kind of situation, if you're in a corporate industry, that I don't think there's any other way. And so, yeah, I went then on a journey of reconnecting to my old self and my roots. And then I suppose slowly then over the years, just bringing all of that into my business.
Yeah.
Getting step by step, getting more brave and more confident about doing that. And, you know, you'll know as well as I do that the crucial element of that is connecting with the right people in the right spaces.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because it's the people that we meet along the journey and those conversations that we end up having, being brave enough to have, stepping into alignment with who we are, but stepping into what we truly firmly believe and just exploring what that could look like going forward, I guess. Yeah, it's really powerful. And I guess the other thing that just really, you know, popped into my head as you were talking there, and you saying that you've done it 15 years ago, you made that decision. It takes time, right? A lot of my clients and people that are in this group actually are early on in their state. So it's like, you know, to have that patience.
Yeah, and with yourself and with the process. I think, you know, this would be one of my tips. I know you were going to ask me for some tips, but I think one of my tips would be don't rush it. You know, we're in a kind of, well, we're going from old paradigm to new paradigm, aren't we? And we've talked about this before. So I've been talking about transition bridge since the beginning of this crazy season. And I really believe that this crazy season is the transition bridge to the new paradigm. But we're still a little bit stuck in old paradigm, you know, in that kind of mid-world. And there is a tendency to want everything to happen now and overnight and quick. And it's all about quick fixes and shortcuts and fast tracking. And, you know, anything of real value and meaning doesn't really happen like that.
No.
It's a slow but meaningful, steady, beautiful process.
Yeah, I love that. Like things that, you know, have value and meaning don't work in that old paradigm, like wants to instantaneous, instant gratification. It's the value in it. It's the ever evolving process. I love that. You know, I love how you just said that. So thank you for that. That's really, I think, something I will definitely take away from today's conversation. Yeah, because it's so true. Yeah.
And you know, life and business are a series of small wins. And I think we can sometimes get too focused on the big win, you know, our big overall goal. I want to be here and I want to be doing that. And so much so that we miss the magic of the small wins along the way.
Oh, and they're so magical, aren't they? We just have to recognize them. And as you say, you know, being mindful and being conscious of that and aware of that, you know, that we are ever going through this process of evolvement and unfolding and expansion and growth in everything we do. And I think for me in business, you know, I think that was one of the important points for me to really recognize and to enjoy the process. I mean, it's such a cliche, isn't it? And like mindfulness and stuff. And, you know, I've done a lot of work around mindfulness as well myself, but it's so true. It's like one of the key things that, you know, really helped me to just, I suppose, expand quicker as well, but you know, rapidly, but just to lean into it and to allow it.
And sometimes things like this, you know, like I talk about values a lot, and I know things like that have been, mindfulness and values and things have been talked about for a long time, but that doesn't mean they're any less important. There's a reason why those things are still around and still talked about. They're crucial, absolutely crucial. And now more so than ever, it has to be about celebrating the small wins, doesn't it? Because in some cases, the big wins are just not possible right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh my goodness, what I love. Wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Michele. Let's talk about the 3 tips you have for like really, truly bravely walking your own path in business now that this, you know, as we've talked about, it is an ever evolving path, and we get to choose really powerfully at each point in that path. So yeah, what are your tips that you have for us here?
Okay, well, I can only draw on my own experience, which is, I think, is the best way to share tips anyway.
Absolutely, I'm totally for that.
So I would say number one, and this is something I did, it's probably the only thing I did before I left my old corporate industry, is I set up a community of like-minded women in that industry who wanted to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that was where the power lay for me. We gave each other the confidence. The whole is always more powerful than the sum of its parts. Yeah. So, I would say, find your tribe, find your community, find your space, find your people, find your people. And there is a danger sometimes with I don't want to diss anybody in our industry, but with coaches and mentors can sometimes use that space to create a bit of guru status.
Yeah.
And I think that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
So even if you're going to create your own space, have it as a collective and a community, build a community. These things are not linear. There's there shouldn't be any hierarchy. We all need to be like I do in my group, and like you do in yours, Natasha. You bring other people in because you spot people in your group that have skills that you don't have, or have expertise that you don't have, and so you recognize that and you invite them in, and so we work as a collective. So I would say that's absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial.
That really makes me feel quite emotional, because I really get that. It's like we're all doing this together. I mean, I go on about it quite a lot. It's like we're all doing this together, and as we, if we're setting up a community, or if we're a part of a community, somebody else's community, we're all contributing to that. And as one person lights up, we light up for other people, and we give them permission to light up as well. And so it is, as you said, it's this collaborative space to explore and to allow ourselves to be with our tribe that really can get us and give ourselves permission to be us. So yeah, I feel quite emotional as you're saying that. So thank you.
Absolutely. And that's, it's okay to be torch bearers, but it's not okay to have guru status.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something entirely different.
Totally different.
And so I suppose that brings me on to tip 2, that another thing that I did was I looked for someone that was slightly ahead of me on the path. Yeah. And sort of reached out and asked them to show me the way. Yeah. And this is, what my life path design is all about. It is entirely possible to design your own life and your own business, but you need that community, your tribe, and you also need to reach out to people who are slightly ahead of you on the path, so that they can show you the best routes, where the obstacles are, where the interesting diversions are, where the best vistas are, the best beaches, all that kind of thing. And then it is our duty, the further along the path we get, to reach back and guide those that are coming up behind us, which I suppose, you were saying earlier that there are people at various different points on their journey in your group. So you may be at a point where you can do both. Yeah. Where you can reach out to somebody that's ahead of you, but you can actually reach back and help someone that's coming up behind you as well.
Yeah, that's how we all rise, right? It's like beautiful. And just like something else, it's like what you were saying, it's like we don't know what we don't know yet. It's like the thing that I've learned from those people that are a few steps ahead of me, that have guided me, that have supported me, but also shown me what I don't know, and what my blind spots are, is like, very, very starkly reflected back at me. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I see, I do that. Okay, I'll take that on board. That's not comfortable, but okay, let's go with that, and let's see what else is out there. So yeah, it's really
definitely. And being humble, right? It's the life anyway is about being humble, isn't it? And that doesn't mean not having confidence and not shining your light. It just means doing it humbly.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
The great spiritual leaders of the world don't stand up on big podiums with microphones raising their fists, do they? They do things very quietly and humbly.
Yes. Yeah, which is what we're seeing right now. But anyway, moving on.
No, but we are seeing a swathe of people who do it like that coming through, and I think that's the encouraging thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I would say probably that leads me on to tip 3, which goes back to what I was saying initially about community and finding your people and finding your space. Yeah. You need a space where you can feel you can be brave enough to take the veil off, to take the mask off. Because what's not going to wash in the new paradigm is anybody that's creating avatars of themselves.
Yeah.
It's all about realness. The A word is used way too much, but it's just about us being uniquely us. And there are people out there waiting to queue up for our gifts. They're actually out there looking for the gifts that we all have. And yet we're hiding them. We're not putting our hand up to let them know where we are. And I think that's the confidence to do that comes from being in the right communities where you feel encouraged and supported to take that veil away, to take the mask off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that if we don't, then the fear wins around the things of, not being in our tribe, being kind of like totally lost the word, but being not allow people just judging us. That's the word.
Judges
and criticizing and just making us feel small. And so that feeds the fear, I guess, of around not allowing us to take off that veil and show people really who we truly are, and trying to actually just be someone who we're not and fit into a box.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear does come from fear usually comes from being in a situation that is unfamiliar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a good thing because it stretches us.
Yeah.
But it's never a good thing if it limits us and pushes us back. And being in the wrong spaces with the wrong people, following the wrong people, can do that to us. Can definitely do that to us.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. It's recognizing which camp that fear falls into. Is it the fear that's going to stretch us and to allow us to grow, and that's slightly challenging and out of our comfort zone and allow us to move through it? Or is it that fear that's really holding us back and hiding, as we said, like not being able to like open that door and say, hey, this is me. It's like I'm going to close it firmly behind me and not standing up for who we are. They're two different elements of fear, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think we forget we have control over fear. Fear is just an emotion.
Yeah.
And it gets a bit of a bad rap as far as I'm concerned, because sometimes it is there to protect us. It's like a little gremlin. They go, oh, don't do that. That might be dangerous. You might get hurt, that kind of thing. So it's there to protect us, but we forget we have a choice, and we can just acknowledge it and say, it's okay, I've got this.
Yeah.
And carry on regardless.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's about when it shows up, it's about recognizing why it's showing up. Is it showing up to shrink me? Or is it showing up to protect me?
Yeah, I love that as well, because it's not always so clear cut, and if we allow it always to show up and to always stop us, then we're not doing ourselves service, are we, in terms of
we're not doing the people exactly. We're not doing the people we're here to serve service either.
Exactly.
Because we have a job to do. We're all here for a reason, and if we're playing small and we're constantly listening to fear and going back in, back behind the curtain, we're not serving.
No, really not.
What they say, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek.
Oh, nice. I like that. Yes, absolutely.
So get your headlamp on and get in there.
Yeah. Get in there. Brilliant. Oh my goodness, there's so many more questions that are bubbling away in my head and thoughts and things like that. But I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Michele. Really has. There's so many other things to explore. Maybe you'll come back and share a little bit more in depth with us some other time in the future.
I'd love to. That'd be great.
But I know you have a gift that you'd like to share with the community here and anyone that's watching. Tell us a little bit about the workbook.
So if you're thinking about how on earth can I design my own life path, is it even possible, then I have got a workbook that will make you see that it is entirely possible and give you 10 top tips for looking at whether you are currently walking your path and how you can identify that path. Yeah. So it's a private page on my website, so I'll post a link.
Brilliant.
Under your in your thread later, if that's okay.
In the comments, so look out for that.
And also on my website, michelehenshaw.com or lifepathdesign.com. If you do michelehenshaw.com, sorry, my parents was such bad spellers. There's only one L in Michele. There is, because a lot of the work that I do, as you can imagine, because I've told you a little bit about my background, is around story and how we can utilize our story to work for us in our lives and businesses as well. So there's a fun little quiz on the website that you can do as well that will identify your story style, which is kind of the first step in you starting to craft your story and use it in your business. So that's quite good fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that sounds like good fun. And it really is so important, isn't it, to think about what we bring in our story and our, all our wealth of experience through whatever we've experienced in life makes us who we are today and what we can share. So
yeah, we all have a story, whether we think we do or not. We all have one, and it's our story that connects us to those people we're talking about. Finding new people. Yeah. Think about when we were children and we made friends in the playground. It was always people that had a similar background or a similar experience or lived in the same area. So it's those similarities in our story that connect us to the right people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again so much.
You're so welcome.
And we will post the links so you can find Michele in the comment threads. And we will be sharing this on various platforms as well. Somebody's just said they've just caught the end of this, but it sounds fascinating and we'll watch the replay. So thank you to everybody that's watched. Thanks for the hearts.
Thank you.
And do tag people that you think would find this interesting as well. We would love them to come and hear this conversation as well. So wishing you all a beautiful Christmas, because this will be the last interview that we will be doing here on Soul Inspired Leaders and with myself. Let's welcome in 2021 with some new energy and inviting in the new earth and the new way of doing things and the new paradigm, as you said, Michele. So wishing everyone a beautiful Christmas if we don't catch up before.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching.